Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Trade, My Journey into the Labyrinth of Political Kidnapping, by Jere Van Dyk, narrated by Boehmer. This is the work of ghosts. You are part of a gigantic picture here. Cast of characters: Afghanistan. Professor Rasul Amin, from Kunar Province, studied in Pakistan. Afghan Minister of Education, later Director of Afghanistan Studies Center, considered an independent thinker and Afghan nationalist. Had many school friends who worked in the Pakistani government, maintained close ties to Pakistan. Uncle of Shah Wali Hazrat, author's fixer. Relationship with Samir, a prostitute. Amin died in 2009. Samir, pseudonym. A prostitute hired by Professor Amin, grew up in a Pakistani refugee camp and has links to kidnappers, introducing Shah Wali to them. She may have links to the ISI. Sami Sharif, author's first fixer, arranged through Peter and Hassina Juvenal. Took author into the mountains where Corporal Pat Tillman was killed. Later took the author to meet the Taliban south of Tora Bora. Appears to have been involved in the kidnapping of British documentary filmmaker Sean Langan in March 2008. Aziz, Sharif's driver, took the author up to Tora Bora and may have been involved in Sean Langan's kidnapping. Haji, Aziz's uncle, a drug smuggler turned car smuggler turned human smuggler. In 2007, took author into Momand Agency, arranged for the author to meet with the Taliban near Tora Bora. In 2008, kidnapped Sean Langan in Bajur Agency, tribal areas of Pakistan, duping Channel 4 into paying a ransom. Ahmed, author's driver, brought to him by Shah Wali, but who may have tried to warn and thus save author from kidnappers. Ahmed Jan, CBS cameraman, author's driver and friend, came with Fazul to author's release, but overcome with emotion, failed to film it. Zelgai, author's fixer and interpreter with Yunus Khalis. Ehsanullah, Pashtun, longtime Afghan journalist, author's friend, source, and neutral observer. Yunus Khalis, a famous Afghan Mujahideen leader in 1980s, center of Mujahideen Taliban Al-Qaeda nexus, close to bin Laden. In author's view, the father or grandfather that bin Laden never had. Died in 2006. According to Khalis guards, former Mujahideen and associates, the author is the only Westerner to visit him after 9/11. Head of the Pakistani-controlled Mujahideen political party, Hizb-e-Islami, Khalis, the Haqqani, Mullah Malang, Mirwais Yassini, Abdul Haq, Haji Abdul Qadir, Haji Din Muhammad, and Hazrat Ali were all a part of the Khalis faction in 1980s. Haji Abdul Qadir, Din Muhammad's older brother, a prominent 1980s Mujahideen commander, governor of Nangarhar province, and Vice President of Afghanistan, killed in 2002 in Kabul by, apparently, Abdullah and maybe Haji Zaman, and others, on orders of ISI. Abdul Haq, famous Mujahideen leader in 1980s jihad against USSR, entered Afghanistan in October 2001 to rally tribes against Taliban and killed on orders of ISI. Quite possibly the man the U.S. or influential elements within the U.S. government wanted to be president after 9/11 instead of Hamid Karzai. President Ronald Reagan honored him with a White House dinner. UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher met with him in London. Haji Din Muhammad, Pashtun, author's oldest friend in Afghanistan, member of prominent Arsala family, chief negotiator for the Afghan government in talks, currently suspended with the Taliban, former and current ally of U.S. government, met with President G.H.W. Bush and 3 times with President Reagan. Din Muhammad and others warned author repeatedly how dangerous it was to try to find out who was involved in his kidnapping. His brothers, Abdul Haq and Haji Qadir, were both killed by Taliban, probably on orders of ISI. His son, Izzatullah, a poet, was killed with Abdul Haq. Amrullah Saleh, Tajik, former head of National Directorate of Security, NDS, Afghan Intelligence Service, plays small but important role in explaining to author what, in his view, happened in his case. That is, his belief that the author was kidnapped by his so-called friends, mirroring exactly what Din Muhammad, a Pashtun, said. Mullah Malang arranged meeting with author and his kidnappers, famous Mujahideen commander during 1980's jihad against USSR, member of parliament who may have betrayed author, said to be a former and possibly present CIA, Iranian, and ISI asset. Mirwais Yassini, Pashtun, member of 1980's Hizb-i-Islami Khalis Mujahideen political faction, today First Deputy Speaker, Lower House of Parliament, introduced Malang to author, enemy of Feridun Mohmand, who secured author's release. Hazrat Ali, Pasha Mujahideen commander in 1980s, member of Hizb-i-Islami Khalis faction, allied with Arsala family, hired by CIA to find bin Laden at Tora Bora, said to be one of the men who killed Abdullah's cousin, Khurshid, after the author's release. Ali's father and other members of his family killed and his son kidnapped. Author believes this is related to his own kidnapping. Haji Abdul Zahir, commonly known as Haji Zahir, member of parliament, member of the Arsala family, son of Abdul Qadir, nephew to Din Muhammad, hired by the CIA along with Hazrat Ali and Haji Zaman to find bin Laden at Tora Bora, said to have been involved with Hazrat Ali in the death of Abdullah's nephew, Khurshid. Khurshid, close relative to Abdullah, rumored to have been killed by Zahir and Hazrat Ali. As a result, Abdullah took his revenge, killing Zahir's father, Haji Qadir, a vice president of Afghanistan, in a contract killing in Kabul in July 2002, assassination ordered by the ISI. Abdullah may have pulled the trigger, but Haji Zaman, said to be an ISI contractor, is said to have been the lead man in the ISI assassination. Zaman is said to have been behind the author's kidnapping, in part, because of the author's links to Din Muhammad and the Arsala family. Feridun Mohmand, Afghan, member of parliament, chief of the Mohmand tribe, said to be an ISI asset, secured author's release. Mohmand's driver was waved onto the U.S. base in Jalalabad and knew, strangely, exactly where to take the author. Gohar Zaman, former head of Pakistan's intelligence bureau, in Dubai for open-heart surgery, had his brother-in-law Bashir send CBS ransom money from Pakistan to Mohmand in Kabul. Feridun Mohmand's convoy was later targeted in a suicide attack. Mohmand may be tied to Michael Semple and possibly to Gohar Zaman. All three are said to have ties to the ISI. Sami Yousafzai, Afghan journalist and fixer living in Pakistan, writes for Newsweek and Daily Beast. Author brought him to CBS, where he has been a consultant. Dawood Sultanzoy, tribal leader, former member of parliament, presidential candidate, television host, Ariana Afghan Airlines and later American Airlines pilot, close to President Ghani, warned author that Din Muhammad might hurt him indirectly. Made introduction to Inayat. Went to high school with Mujahideen anti-Western guerrilla leader Gulbuddin Hekmatyar. Inayat, pseudonym. Afghan tribal leader from the border region, family links in Miran Shah, a member of parliament, who introduced author to another tribal leader, Arifullah Pashtun, who brought him together with Ibrahim Haqqani. Pashtun later claimed that Inayat learned of a 2007 plot by Sirajuddin Haqqani to kidnap the author, and thought to help Sirajuddin and get his share of the ransom money. Arifullah Pashtun, leader of the Saberi tribe, from the border region, former chairman, Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Upper House of Parliament, served as intermediary with Haqqanis. Fazlur Rahim, Tajik, one of the author's closest friends, worked tirelessly to save him. Ahmed Shah Amin, CBS contractor, cousin of Fazlur Rahim, involved in trying to rescue author, believes that there was a conspiracy in author's release. Peter Juvenal, English, businessman and cameraman, covered Afghan-Soviet war for the BBC, filmed CNN bin Laden interview with his wife Hassina, owned the Gandamak, a hotel for journalists. He and Hassina introduced the author to Sharif. The Wahhabi, Shah Wali's friend and guide to the Taliban. The Malik of Dukalam plotted to extort money from the author, introducing him to the trade, sent author across border into Chitral, Pakistan, for first cross-border interview with the Taliban. Abu Hamza, Taliban commander in Kunar province, interviewed by author, and later may have tried to kidnap him. Abu Omar, Taliban commander interviewed by author in Chitral, north of the tribal areas, Pakistan. Pakistan. Abdallah, the author's main kidnapper, probably an ISI asset, widely rumored to have assassinated on the orders of the ISI, Haji Abdul Qadir, a vice president of Afghanistan, and Din Muhammad's brother, underling to Haji Zayman, probably an ISI asset who undertook author's kidnapping, lives in tribal areas of Pakistan. Razi Gul, one of Abdallah's men, one of author's bodyguards, fellow captive and a captor. He and Samir are both from Landi Khotal, a town in Khyber Agency, in the tribal areas. Samir apparently introduced Gul to Shah Wali. Gulob, main jailer who lives, it seems, in Landi Khotal, along with Razi Gul and Abdallah. He, like Razi Gul, is part of Abdallah's gang. Samad, author's bodyguard, who was also a captive and is part of Abdallah's clan, married, the author believes, to Abdallah's sister, and his gang. He claimed to be involved in a war with the Arsala family. He lives, probably, in Mohmand Agency, Pakistan. Abdul Wali, head of the Taliban in Mohmand Agency, ISI asset. Gulob claimed that they were under Abdul Wali, who may have been ultimately responsible for author's kidnapping. Haji Zayman, probable ISI asset, former 1980s Mujahideen commander, hired by the CIA in 2001 to capture or kill bin Laden in Tora Bora. He allegedly just pocketed the money the U.S. paid him to fight al-Qaeda, lead figure in author's kidnapping. Abdallah worked for him. According to Din Muhammad, Zayman killed his brother, Haji Qadir, widely believed to be on the orders of the ISI. Zayman was killed in 2010, maybe by the Arsala family. Gohar Zayman, Pashtun, former Pakistani police officer, former head of Intelligence Bureau, the Pakistan Police Intelligence Agency, one of 7 Pakistani intelligence agencies, hired by Kroll, Inc., which CBS hired to assist in author's release. Zayman is still linked, it seems, to ISI and MI6. Ibrahim Haqqani, diplomatic and political head of the Haqqani network, lead negotiator for the Taliban in peace talks, currently stalled. According to Ibrahim, his nephew, Sirajuddin Haqqani, is the caliph, spiritual leader, of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. He is also military leader of the Taliban. Ibrahim is said to have direct ties to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Pakistani Army and to the ISI. Author lived with Ibrahim and his older brother, Jalaluddin Haqqani, founder of the Haqqani network, as a freelance journalist during Afghan-Soviet War in Afghanistan. Mahmud Mohmand, pseudonym. Lawyer, tribal chief from Mohmand Agency, invited by the U.S. to study U.S. court system. Michael Semple introduced Mohmand to the author, who then met Mohmand in New York City. Mohmand asked the author if he was kidnapped by the Pakistani government or the Taliban. the first man to introduce this possibility to the author. Close ties to U.S. Embassy in Pakistan. Represents Shakil Afridi, Pakistani doctor hired by CIA to help identify bin Laden's presence in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Brought up the names Shah Saab, now with ISIS, and Abdul Wali, head of Taliban in Mohmand, to the author, just as author's captors did. Shah Wali Hazrat, author's fixer who betrayed him to his kidnappers, worked for his uncle Rasul Amin in Afghanistan Study Center's library before becoming a schoolteacher. FBI wanted to take the author back to Afghanistan to help FBI take him to Guantanamo, or, if he resisted, to kill him. Lives in Peshawar, Pakistan. Maria Usman, bureau chief, CBS News, Pakistan, worked tirelessly to help author. Father is former ambassador to Kabul, served as interpreter in author's 2015 meeting with Ibrahim Haqqani. Mugadir Khan, CBS driver, author's friend, Pashto tutor, and part of CBS's Islamabad Shura, which was set up at Michael Semple's farm to rescue author. Washington, New York, UK, Germany. Roseanne Klass, strong conservative, author's friend, prominent American expert on Afghanistan during 1980s Afghan-Soviet War. Introduced author to Rasul Amin, Minister of Education, who indirectly led him into the labyrinth of political kidnapping. Bob and John, pseudonyms, FBI agents who were part of author's rescue team and one of whom tried to get the author to return to Afghanistan to capture or kill Shah Wali. Bill, pseudonym, victim specialist, FBI, who pressured author to see Rochelle. Michael Semple, Irish, Muslim, linguist, scholar, MI6 contact, former Oxfam, EU and UN official at the Bonn Conference in 2001, and in Afghanistan one of the world's premier experts on Afghanistan. Married to the daughter of a Pakistani general, considered by CBS as the man who saved author's life. Andy Clark, English. Author was told that he couriered $1 million into Pakistan to ransom author, part of ad hoc Islamabad Shura, Council, who brought in Sami Yousafzai and Michael Semple to work on author's case. Today, CBS bureau chief in London, covering Africa, Europe, the Middle East, and South Asia. Ingrid Cyprian Matthews, born in Dominican Republic, and whose family suffered under dictatorship of strongman Rafael Trujillo, and fled to the U.S. Today, CBS foreign editor and senior vice president, who took it upon herself to go against initial CBS reluctance and U.S. law to ransom and thus rescue author. A central character, close and interesting relationship between rescuer and victim. Ana Real, deputy foreign editor at CBS, born in Central America, plays important and controversial role in author's rescue. Rochelle, pseudonym, a psychiatrist on contract with the FBI and maybe on occasion with CIA, imposed on author by FBI. Author left her in 2009. Thomas Ruttig, German scholar from former East Germany, co-founder and co-director of Afghanistan Analysts Network, close to Michael Semple, worked on 2004 UN kidnapping case. Behrouz Khan, Pashtun, Pakistani journalist in Peshawar, today with Voice of America, VOA, in Washington, D.C. Introduced author to Sami Yousafzai and to Pakistani ambassador Asif Durrani. Asif Durrani, currently Pakistani ambassador to the United Arab Emirates. According to Professor Amin, Durrani blackballed author's visa application. John Solecki, American, author's friend, UNHCR official, kidnapped in Baluchistan province, Pakistan, by a secular Baluch guerrilla organization in 2008. David Rode, American, and author's friend, former New York Times reporter, kidnapped by Haqqani network in 2008, and from which he escaped. Today, online editor for The New Yorker. Tahir Lodin, Afghan fixer, worked with David Rode and escaped with him in Pakistan. Lisa Monaco, Homeland Security Advisor and Chief Counterterrorism Advisor to President Obama. Jennifer Easterly, Senior Director for Counterterrorism, White House. Jason Amarine, Special Forces Officer tasked to rescue Abdul Haq, sent to protect Hamid Karzai, future President of Afghanistan, tasked to set up a special unit in the Pentagon to rescue Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, American Caitlin Coleman, her 2 children, her husband, Canadian Joshua Boyle, and American Paul Overby, all believed being held by the Haqqani network. David McCraw, Assistant Legal Counsel and now Vice President, New York Times. Author's Note. On February 16, 2008, a warm, sunny morning, I left Jalalabad, Afghanistan, and crossed into the tribal areas of Pakistan, off-limits to foreigners, and hiked up into the mountains of Muhammad Agency, where, at dusk, I was kidnapped. I wrote about the experience in Captive. This audiobook uses the story of why I went, some of what I couldn't talk about earlier, some of what happened afterward, and the story of my return to find out the truth, to paint a picture not so much of the experience of being kidnapped, but to map the dark labyrinth of the geopolitics of kidnapping. Much of the research here, both recent and not so recent, has depended on one person recommending me to speak to another. There is a kind of chain, and I've come to believe that a book set in a lawless region that investigates illegality could not have been written any other way. There is no completely reliable source, no ultimate validation of a single truth, no all-persuasive authority. Instead, I have talked to everyone caught up in the shadows of the business of kidnapping and all that it represents. I have had to listen to people telling me things I know cannot be wholly true, but may nonetheless be revealing for unintended reasons. In 2008, after I was released, I didn't believe the little that my employer or the FBI told me about my kidnapping. I didn't feel that they were lying, only that they didn't know the truth. I knew almost nothing beyond that which happened in my cell, but slowly, over the next 5 years, I began to learn a few things about what happened on the outside. CBS wouldn't let me return to South Asia, nor was I ready to until in 2013 I created an opportunity to travel to the Middle East to research a book on the links between the Haqqani network and jihadist groups there. And so, I was drawn again into the intrigue of Afghanistan and Pakistan. They are not transparent countries. In my experience, there is a subterranean world that an outsider cannot penetrate. Things are rarely what they seem to be. You must go slowly, carefully, and always remember Kipling, who wrote, "Here lies a fool who tried to hustle the East." You must go as if walking through a jungle at night, watching each step. You must always, above all, trust your instincts. This seems obvious, but I, in my ambition, in my rush to cross the mountains, to go where others had not and could not go, got kidnapped because I had not heeded the warnings that surrounded me. Finally, and for many people this is difficult to understand and easy to mock, because of my upbringing and my experiences, I have had no choice but to go beyond instinct and to trust, sometimes, that I am being led. Call it God's will, Kismet, or Providence, if you wish. Insha'Allah, God willing, men say in Arabic. Deus vult, God wills it. The Crusaders said in their war against Islam. God willing, we said in our Plymouth Brethren Assembly when I was a boy. Afghanistan and Pakistan are religious countries, where men are mostly aware of the power of God. Religion is the most powerful force in that world. I understand religious fundamentalism, this new phenomenon in Afghanistan, the tension between God and Mammon, what it gives to and demands from a man. This audiobook is about what I call the trade, the growing international business of political kidnappings, according to the U.S. Treasury, the most lucrative source of income outside of state sponsorship for terrorist groups. But it's more than about money. It is about my attempt, yes, to find the answer to two questions which have haunted me for 9 years. Who kidnapped me, and why? But also, it is a search for redemption, a religious term. The only way I could find the answers was to go, as I always have, from one man to the next day. It is a dangerous, sinuous route. Part 1. You know how things work around here. Just takes a little longer, usually. Maria Usman. Chapter 1. The White House. June 24th, 2015. We sat talking quietly in the large white room at elegant, dark hardwood desks placed together in a square on an inlaid multicolored wood floor. There was a white folder in front of each of us that read, The White House. Inside were papers and a document with the gold seal of the President of the United States, and below that, Executive Order, and the words, Hostage Recovery Activities. Army Lieutenant General Bennett Sakalik sat on my right, and next to him, Jen Easterly, Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Counterterrorism. Next to her was the name card for Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor. She wasn't there. Next to her seat were 2 more empty chairs. A few minutes passed and 2 Secret Service agents in dark suits appeared in the doorway. They stood to the side, and the room was silent. A tall, slim, energetic-looking man appeared, filling the doorway. We rose and stood behind our chairs. Slowly, President Barack Obama made his way around the room, shaking hands with each person while a photographer took pictures. He lingered before Paula Summers and Jordan Summers, whose son and brother Luke, 33, was killed by al-Qaeda in a SEAL rescue attempt in Yemen in December 2014, and then with Carl and Marsha Mueller, whose daughter Kayla, 26, was killed in a bomb attack in Syria in February 2015. And then with Art and Shirley Sotloff, whose son Stephen, 31, was beheaded by ISIS in September 2014, and then with Ed and Paula Kassig, whose son Peter, 26, who became Abdul Rahman, was beheaded by ISIS in November 2014, and then with Diane and John Foley, whose son Jim, 40, was beheaded by ISIS in August 2014. He came around and approached me. He looked at me with a tinge of kindness, his eyes far away. "Hi, Jerry, good to see you," he said as we shook hands. A Secret Service agent, his coat unbuttoned, watched closely. The President touched General Sakalik on the arm and walked to his chair. We sat down, and Vice President Joe Biden walked in through the opposite doorway. I stood up to shake hands, but he smiled and told me to sit down, patted me on the shoulder, and sat next to the President. Lisa Monaco, U.S. Homeland Security Advisor, sat on the President's right, the Vice President on his left, a few inches back. The room was silent as we waited. "Good morning," said the President, his voice soft and assured. It carried easily around the room. He slowly turned a page of a briefing book, barely glancing down. "Thank you for being here." Behind him were the American flag and the President's flag. He looked around the room. "I am a father and a husband as well as the President. If something happened to one of my daughters, I would do everything I could, regardless of the circumstances, to get her back. I take full responsibility for the actions that I have ordered. I am heartbroken at what many of you have had to suffer.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?